Firstly, just to thank the Lord Mayor for the opportunity to attend this meeting and to offer some remarks about the COVID-19 Business Response Group, which has produced a business response plan. Next slide, please, Edward. And the next one, please. In March, when it became obvious that we were facing an unprecedented challenge as a city and as a country, business groups from across the city came together with the council to form the COVID-19 Business Response Group. The groups that have been involved in this work throughout are on the slide that you can see. It is not a fixed membership, it's an evolving membership based on the differing needs of different business communities at any particular one point in time. But I would want to draw attention to the fact that I'm here this afternoon representing Sheffield Chamber, but behind me sits a large number of groups that have been involved in this process. I've been active in Sheffield for the last 15 years. It's not the longest period of time, but like Edward, I've been really struck and, dare I say it, proud by the collaboration that has gone on between organisations like the Chamber of Commerce, the Sheffield Property Association, Sheffield Digital, our two universities, and organisations like Unite, who represent our nighttime community. So just as this city has been impacted in so many ways by the pandemic, there's not a family nor a business that's gone untouched. What we've been looking to do is provide a whole city response to the impact that the pandemic has had on our business community. Next slide, please, Edward. There's a lot of deep thinking that is going on around the world as to how we respond to COVID-19. There is a moment in time where we need to think about how we build back better. That is a conversation that we will have, I'm sure, in Sheffield over the years ahead. But what we've wanted to do is put real problems at the front and center of our work and to recognize that real world problems need real world solutions. So we've not used this as an opportunity to write an academic thesis or a doctorate piece of work. We've been really focused, and we've identified 6 priorities that we think are going to be key to helping our business community bounce back from the impacts of COVID-19. Edward has spoken a lot about the immediate relief that Business Sheffield and other organisations have been able to provide. I'm going to focus more of my comments on how we prepare for and drive forward the recovery, which will be uncertain and which will be turbulent, but is going to become more obvious as we roll out the vaccine, as Greg Fell has spoken about earlier. The 6 priorities are very clear. They're about the tangible and intangible aspects of our business community. We've got to do all that we can to support local businesses by stimulating demand. We've got to keep our city and district centres open safely and securely to give people confidence that they can get out and about within the confines of restrictions. One of the things that we've been really focused on is recognising that we can do more to help people start their own business. As Edward has spoken about, we are going to see an increase in unemployment. We've got to do as much as possible to get people into good quality and meaningful jobs. But another route out of unemployment is to follow a dream and to start your own business. And we want to make that as easy as possible for anybody, anywhere in Sheffield to do that. We always have to think about our skills base. Our economy is changing at such a pace. So we must use this opportunity to help communities get back to work through reskilling. We thought about culture. Culture, in our view, is not just about art on a wall or performers on a stage. It's about celebrating every aspect of community's life in Sheffield. And we want to use this opportunity to make sure that we continue to invest in culture and in communities and to help leverage in funding from third parties. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then last but not least, and I don't represent the totality of the business community. I'm just one person representing the Chamber of Commerce this afternoon. But business leaders around the city, leaders from the Property Association, Sheffield Digital, stand full square alongside local government across the political spectrum to say that we want to work on a whole city basis to think about a long-term economic strategy for the city so that we do bounce back better. Next slide, please, Edward. A little bit more detail, but go through our priorities. The restrictions have had a huge impact on our economy. As we've all commented on, they've been necessary. But one thing that the pandemic has done is decimated confidence in the business community. Economies are fueled by confidence. So what we need to do coming out of this pandemic is do all that we can to stimulate local demand for local businesses. That's our primary focus, on giving businesses all the confidence that they need and to help, a bit tempered whilst the restrictions remain, to give people the confidence to keep purchasing and investing in local businesses and services. We've got to keep our city and also our district centres open safely and securely, helping businesses to adapt, as Edward's spoken about, but also thinking long term about how we can revitalise the district centres in our city and how we can make sure that they are safe and secure. We've also got here to make links to the climate emergency and really recognising that everywhere where there is a business in our city needs to have a long-term strategy to make sure that our city centre and our district centres remain strong and vibrant. And that's why we've put this priority in our plan. Next slide, Edward. Thank you. I touched on skills already. We know that there's always a challenge thinking about the skills going to be needed for the economy of the future. There is a huge amount of activity already going on in Sheffield, and it has been for decades, and it will continue, about how we reskill our communities. We're using this pandemic, not in a cynical way, but in a positive way, to redouble our efforts, to think about how we address poor levels of digital use, to think about how we make sure that people have the skills that they need for the jobs of the future. I would note as an aside that one of the things that we can do more effectively is signpost people to the support and provision that's already available. It may not be about inventing new programs and new schemes. It might actually be about being more effective with our communication. We can do more as a city, the business sector included, to make it as easy as possible for people to start good and sustainable businesses. Again, there is a lot of support already out there in Sheffield for people who want to follow a dream and start their business. But what we want to do as a result of this work is provide more communication and more signposting to those people to know about the huge amount of support that's already out there. It's much about providing a wraparound service to complement existing provision as it is, again, to invent anything new. And to promote Sheffield as a place where you can start a successful business that creates high quality jobs. Next slide, please, Edward. Stimulating investment in culture. I would admit that that may seem a strange priority to be talking about amidst a pandemic. But again, we focused working with colleagues in the cultural consortium and the cultural community to recognise that culture is not just pictures on a wall or performers on a stage. It's about rebuilding confidence in our communities. And it is helping to attract back the visitor numbers to our city, who are an increasingly important part of our visitor economy. We have some amazing cultural assets across our city, and we want to make sure that when restrictions allow, people come back flocking from local communities and further afield to enjoy all that Sheffield has to offer. I would also make the observation that we can work more effectively as a city to draw in investment, culture, and our communities. The data tells us in the business response group that Sheffield per capita currently enjoys £5 per head of funding from the Arts Council. That compares to Leeds that gets £40 per head and Liverpool that gets £67 per head. I'm not here to make a political observation or to comment on the Arts Council's funding regime, but rather to acknowledge that we can do a lot more to bring in funding to celebrate culture and communities in our city. And last but not least, to offer, perhaps as a hand of friendship from the Chamber's perspective, certainly, from the Property Association's perspective, to create a new opportunity to collaborate with local government, with the City Council, with the Mayoral Combined Authority, and across the political spectrum, to be able to think about the long-term shape of our economy, to make sure that it continues to provide good quality jobs for everybody in every community, and to take one silver lining from the very dark cloud that has been hanging over this city, this country, and this world in 2020, which is that we have an opportunity to build back better. And the way that we do that is by working together as one, public and private sector. And so what we hope in the business response group is that what we've done this year is planted a small acorn, and that over the coming years that we can build a spirit of collaboration in Sheffield, which would resonate positively around the country and if not around the world. And that may seem a over thing to say at a particular moment in time, but over the centuries, what Sheffield has done has resonated around the world positively. And perhaps we can do that again as we come out of this pandemic.